So, Gudvach, Ariel, and Josh, and all those who are on YouTube. So, we have a custom. Our minhag is to say a story of tzaddikim or other stories. So, this week we have a few stories to share. We'll start with the story of a story of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev. That when Rabbi Levi Yitzchak became the Rav, he was a Rav in the city of Barditchev. It means now he wasn't just the Rebbe, so to say, with Hasidim, which of course he was, but he also actually was the Rav of the city, which means he had the responsibility to deal with the halachos, the laws that come across the table of the Rav. And so he just becomes Rav of the city in Barditchev, it says in the year 1785. So he gets a knock on the door, and he has a issue like this. A very wealthy, well-known merchant from a neighboring city comes to Rebbe Levi Yitzchak, and he says he has a taina, he has a claim, he has a case. The case is that he had a very, very, very mamish best close friend in the city of Barditchev. And they besides for being close friends, they also had business relations together. And he was one of the things this person was. He was a merchant of honey. And honey is a commodity, as we know. So commodities, the prices go up and down. So he bought a lot of honey to take to the fair, to the market. And when time he got there, the price of honey tanked. So he didn't feel he wasn't desperate because he was a business person and he didn't want to sell out of being desperate. So he figured he's going to hold on to the honey. He figures the tide's going to turn, and the price of honey will go back up, and then he'll make his profit. So he decided to hold, but he needed to store his honey. So he went to his very, very dear friend in the city of Barditchev. He was from Hemelinik. So he decided to go to his friend and asked him. He knew he had a great amount of storage, also a big business person. He said, "Can I store it by you?" He said, "Sure, no problem. When you want to sell it, come pick it up." And they had no agreement because they were very close friends. It was all word of mouth. It was, just a handshake or agreement or just this, quickly, I'm leaving my honey by you. So, but he kept on waiting for the prices of honey to go up, and the honey prices are not going up. Finally, the prices rise. And he goes, but at the time the prices were rising and he's ready to sell, his very close friend had passed away. Mm-hmm. Now these were the barrels or the buckets of honey were now in the hands of his of the children, means the Yorshim, right? So he says to the Yorshim, he says, your father, we're close friends. I stored my honey by him. I want to pick it up to sell it. So the Yorshim say, our father never told us anything about that. We don't know. We have honey, but we don't know that it's yours. And there's no proof. So he went to the court case. He went to the Rav, to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. And so Rabbi Levi Yitzchak is thinking two things. He says, I have to wait. I have to see. The problem is that the law is very clean cut, meaning to say, even if there's two problems. Problem is number one is the person was a very respected person. No one would ever suspect this person. He wasn't in financial need. No one would ever suspect this person to be a non-straight business person. So if he said that he stored the honey, chances are maybe he did store the honey. And chances are the father never told the children. And so the children didn't say it's not your honey. They just say, we don't know it's your honey. But the halacha is also clear. The halacha is you can't take from Yarshim. You can't take from Yisraelim, from orphans without proof. Or at least a shavua, and they can't accept it because they don't know. So he's thinking to himself, why would such a simple case be put in front of him? It's so clean cut, and his first case is Rav. And also he was wondering, why would God have made him such a situation where he's going to have to paskin a law, and it's going to be the halacha is going to be right, but he knows everyone in the community is going to be like, what's going on? This person surely is not lying. Everyone believed him. He had a good reputation. So he was thinking. He says, I need some time to think. While he was waiting and thinking, because he was really more pondering of himself. He was thinking about himself, about what kind of position he was put in as a young Rav to be put in what he saw to be such a simple question. All of a sudden, the person who was claiming against the Yarshim, he said, it hit me like a bolt, he says. He said, I don't know why I didn't think about it before. I haven't thought about the story for 50 years. He says, when I was a young man, and my father knew this merchant, who passed away, my friend, knew already my father. He was a little older than I. And after my father passed away, we had an exact opposite story. And the exact opposite story is that my father, this person came. He says, "I knew your father very well." And then later they became very close friends. And he stored by. He said, "I stored by your father wine and other products that your father was holding for me. I have no proof because we were very close, and oil and wine." And the law was exactly the reverse because he couldn't claim for me. I didn't know that I didn't say he was lying. I just didn't know. I didn't know that it was. I didn't know that it was if it was true or not. I was a yasam. The person who would have to swear would be the child. The child can't swear. He's not saying that it's for sure not mine. He's saying I don't know. So the rule is just that you have to leave it in the hands of the yisomim. And he goes, what's crazy is it turns out it's the exact same value of money. What he was claiming for the wine and the oil was the exact same value that I'm claiming for the honey. And it turned out, so Rabbi Yitzchak understood from the story, and this is the idea of shoftim, of judgment, that Hashem has a very large book in front of him. That yes, the honey was this person's, but the wine was also these people's father, the Yisomim's father. So God equaled out. When he started his career, he also was able to be the benefit of the law as a Yoresh, as a Yasam, as an orphan, that they couldn't take it out of his hands, and God paid him back when he stored his honey, and then he passed away. So now the books equaled out, and Rabbi Yitzchak realized from this how much greater the stories and the pictures are in life. That's not always what simple meets the eye. Okay, that's one story. There's another story I would like to tell, that this was told to me in confidence to share at this class tonight. I was told a few stories. I can tell one of them tonight. So this gentleman, I heard it firsthand. So he tells me a story like this, a fascinating story. To connect it a little to last week's parsha, which is the laws of kosher. That when he and his wife started off in life and got married, so they kept a kosher home for their family, but they didn't necessarily keep kosher so well outside the home. Outside the home, they that wasn't their thing. But at home, they kept a kosher home, and especially when they had guests, the family that would come eat by them, they knew they could eat in their house. So he says that it was one Shabbos after Friday afternoon of Shabbos, getting ready for Shabbos, and his in-laws were coming for Shabbos. His mother-in-law was coming for Shabbos, and so of course they were buying everything in kosher food, and everyone knows kosher food could be a little bit more expensive sometimes, and Shabbos food is also, you want to make a nice Shabbos. So when you're standing there online before they're about to check to pay for the bill, he looks at the bill and he sees how great the expense was, and he needed, the finances needed a bit to be better than they were. So he said to Hashem, Hashem, listen, because if you want me to keep kosher 100% inside and outside the house, I said we need to have a larger income. We can't keep kosher on this income. And as they were standing there, his wife got a phone call from her boss and said, we decided that we're going to give you a raise. And from then he told me that he's kept kosher ever since, in and outside the house. It's a tremendous story of chizuk, of hashgacha pratis, and of the month of Elul, daven and Hashem answers. To finish off with the third story, and then we'll then go to halachos. We know that in this week's parsha talks about. It's actually a fascinating story. We talk about the laws of the king. One of the things that you can and can't. What the king can and cannot do, how many wives he could have, how much money he should have. So you can't overdo it. One of the things the Torah talks about is horses. You can't give him too much horses. So there's a story of a Yid who was a factory owner, and he lived in Russia under the Tsar, and he had he was a manufacturer. He manufactured. He had a boat yard, and he would make ships for the Tsar's navy, and he had many employees. Of course, when you make ships, you need a lot of employees, and he had a lot of employees, and he had a lot of. He was very wealthy, and his employees were all primarily non-Jewish, who were tremendous, as the Russians are and were, tremendous anti-Semites, and they hated the fact that they worked for a Jew. Just had a story in America. Someone says he's not going to work for a Jew, so they hate the fact that they had to work for a Jew. and they hated their boss, they hated the fact that he was Jewish, they hated the fact that they had to work for a Jew. So they came up with a scheme that they're gonna do something to the boat that they're making for the Tsar's navy that's going to be damaging, and then they're going to report that the boss is asking them to cut corners at the safety of the ships, of the vessels, that could cost the tremendously. Besides, it's taking money from the Tsar, so it could cost the Tsar in battle. And they reported, and their case was, they did all the testimony, and they all kept together, and it was taken very seriously. And a big court case was set for that date, for a certain date, and he was going. It could have been really, really horrible for him, his family, and of course for the Jewish community, because it would reflect on the Jewish community. So he did not do. He tried all kind of ways to try to get out of this, to prove that he was innocent. It wasn't true, and nothing was working. So he went to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, Shnei Zalman of Ladi, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's thinking. He says, okay, I need you to listen to me exactly and do exactly what I said. He said, I need you to go to the stables. I need to go to the stables and buy the best quality horses. Get 4 mamish, don't be cheap. The best that money could buy, the best quality horses. And then you have to go to the wagon stores and buy the finest wagon that money could buy. And you need to take the horse and buggy and go to Petersburg, where the Tsar was spending time, and drive around the palace, up and down, until someone's going to come out from the palace and offer to buy your horse and buggy. And don't sell. Don't sell. So you won't sell. And no matter how much money he offers you, don't sell. Then he's going to say that it's for the Tsar. And when you say it's for the Tsar, you jump up, you stand in attention, you say, for the Tsar, I'm giving it as a gift. That's what you have to do. He said, this is very weird instructions. He doesn't know. So, but of course, the Rebbe tells him to do it. He does it. Doesn't say if he was a chassid or not. So he goes and he buys the finest horses. He buys a fine wagon. He goes to Petersburg. It's a whole trip, and he's driving for hours or days to get there. Russia's big. He gets there, and sure enough, he's driving up and down. He feels weird. It's like a weird thing, like driving your car back and forth. He's driving up and down the street with his wagon. Sure enough, as the Rebbe said, someone came out of the palace and said, we would like to buy the horse and buggy from you. So he said, no, sorry. And of course, they kept on putting up the price. Finally, the person said, this is for the Tsar. He says, oh, it's for the Tsar. Mm-hmm. So he jumps out of his wagon and he says, I give it as a gift to the Tsar. But he didn't notice is that the Tsar was watching this whole thing from the window. And the Tsar gets the gift, and he's very troubled by why would the Jew, he also wasn't a lover of the Jew. Why is the Jew trying to bribe me with horse and buggy? He was a little confused. But then he thought to himself, he says, the name sounds familiar. And then he remembered that this is the name that came across his table of a court case against a government contract, that it came to his attention that there was a judgment that he was selling faulty ships to the Tsar. So he decided, you know what, let me investigate a little more. And after further investigation and stronger interrogation of the witnesses, they all admitted their guilt, that it was a scheme and it was an anti-Semitic libel, and he was set free. Of course, the case was dropped, and no. So he went back to the Alter Rebbe. He was so amazed. He went back to the Alter Rebbe to thank the Alter Rebbe for such a great miracle. So the Alter Rebbe smiled and says, it wasn't a miracle. He says that this week's parsha tells us that you have to be careful about buying too many horses for a king. So Alter Rebbe says, I was always wondering to myself, why do you have to say that? Like, yeah, we're talking about even people like King David and King Solomon, great kings. Like, what do you have to tell them? Don't buy, don't take a airplane from Qatar. Don't take a. I mean, it means they're bigger than that. You have to tell them not to take horses. I mean, the horses it's fair. Why do you have to tell King David not to have too many horses? So the Alter Rebbe says, obviously, in Torah knows that a king has a very, very strong desire for horses for whatever reason. That's something that triggers a desire by horses. They see horses, they go wild. No pun intended. They see horses, they go wild. You need to have the horse. They're very excited if Qatar gives them a plane. So I figured that if go with horses, and they wish they would already figure it out how you're going to, because the Tsar is going to want the horses if he sees them, and then already you could be able to work out the case. All right, so those are our stories for tonight. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Now let's learn a little bit of halacha. Hold on, let's bring up the page. So I'm going to know the laws of Sefer Torah. So let's go here. It's chapter 23. Here we go. So it says like this. I'm going to finish off actually with a story that I wanted to tell as well. So we'll learn a little bit and some one more story. It says like this. Okay, here. I believe holding Tezvav 15. B'tainis tzibur on a fast day, kishakoyin veichal, ein koyin la'alis l'Torah el mish misana. If we have a fast day and we call up someone to the Torah, only someone who's fasting should get an aliyah. If you're not fasting, I think we've done this before. But just read it quick. V'im ein kan koyin acher el zeh she'ein misana, or she'ein b'daiti l'hashlim. Koyin l'Yisrael levim koyin. Then even if there's a koyin, he's the only koyin in the room. Never that we would call Yisrael if there's no Levi in his place, even if he's there because he's not fasting. But if Sheitza Kohen basic Knesset, it's better to leave the shul. If there's another Kohen, then he doesn't have to go out because the other Kohen gets the aliyah. The idea should let Yikro, that he should let them know, don't call me up, call up the other Kohen. If they call up, you shouldn't go up. But if it's also a fast, it's on Thursday and Friday, on Monday and Thursday, well, we read the Torah anyways. Just that the actual Kriya is going to be different because it's a fast day. Even though we're not reading the reading of Monday and Thursday, which we read the Parsha Shavua, we're reading the special reading for the fast, and this person is not participating in the fast or doesn't plan on completing the fast. Even Sha'atu is man Krias HaTorah. So, because anyways, it's the day of the Sefer of a reading, and if he didn't leave the shul and they called him up, he should go up to the Torah. Okay, we're not going to do the footnotes because we did this the halacha last week. Now it's like this. Let's say someone lives in Eretz Yisrael, Eretz HaKodesh. Where there's Yom Tov only one day, milvad Rosh Hashanah, aside for Rosh Hashanah. And he's spending the Yom Tov in Chutz La'aretz. And he's in the shul the second day of Yom Tov, where they're reading a special reading for Yom Tov, but doesn't apply to this person because this person's only keeping one day. According to those who, when they travel, they keep the days of how they are. There's different customs. Halachos, if you keep 1 day, 2 days, but that we're not going into that discussion. We'll get there when we learn halachos Yom Tov. But right now, the person is keeping only 1 day, but they're reading the Torah for the second day for those who live in Chutz La'aretz. Don't call up a person who's from Eretz Yisrael to the Torah in the second days. And the same ruling, if you're the Kohen or etc., you leave the room. All the things, if it's a Monday and Thursday, all the laws that we said before in Law 15 with regard to the situation. So if it's a Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday, say. So then, if that's possible, then it's possible. So he wouldn't go up. But if it's a Monday and Thursday, possibly he would go up because it's day of Kriya anyways. I'm not sure. Let's see the footnotes, because when it's a regular weekday for one residing in Eretz Yisrael, though in public he must act as on Yom Tov. So what he's saying is, this scenario only works for the second days. Because Chol HaMoyed, the question is like this. He doesn't discuss the question if it's Chol HaMoyed. For instance, if Sukkot is the first day of Sukkot, let's say this year's Shabbos, I think falls out on Shabbos. So Sunday is the first day, is the second day Yom Tov, Chutz La'aretz. In Eretz Yisrael, Sunday is the first day Chol HaMoyed. So they're going to read the Torah anyways. So also depending on, but the reading is going to be different. It's going to be a reading for the Chol HaMoed, not the reading for Yom Tov. But it also depends on what Yom Tov. Some Yom Tovs the Chol HaMoed is the same reading in Chutz La'aretz. So it's not always applicable. So maybe therefore Chol HaMoed, if anyways there's a reading, even if it's not the same reading, that because you would have a reading, then you could go up. It seems like he says from the footnote that this applies to the last days of Yom Tov or Shavuos, where let's say 7th day of Pesach, 8th day of Pesach, or the final day of Simchas Torah, where by you, if you were in Eretz Yisrael, be weekday, not even Chol HaMoed. So then there's no Kriya. If there's no Kriya at all, you shouldn't go up for the aliyah or the second day Shavuos. It doesn't say what the scenario would be in the first days of Yom Tov when it's Chol HaMoed and it's not Yom Tov. But because I think only on Pesach, I have to check the Siddur, I forget. Only on Pesach, the Kriya could be different. Okay. 36. See, What are you talking about? The rules starts with the previous paragraph. See Sharim Mitzuyanim Halacha for a completion of the various opinions regarding this situation. Okay, so he gives this more opinions, but what we've discussed basically is that if it's Monday and Thursday, you could go up if you're being called. If you're a kohen, you should leave the room. Preferably even leave the room if it's Monday and Thursday. And if it's not a Monday and Thursday, you shouldn't even go up. But it could be that the Shir Mitzion Halacha break it down a little differently. He says we should check there for more information. Okay, Summa. What about a blind person? Can a blind person get an aliyah? Summa noigin l'kroisai. The custom is that we do call up a blind person, even though they can't see the Torah. Even though the halacha is the things that are written, also the kroisim read it by heart. Mikol makom izman hazed today. Kimin shekoyra koyra lefanav muta. Today the Baal Korah reads. Once upon a time, and still certain Sephardic customs are that when you got an aliyah, the person who got the aliyah read. But by Ashkenazim, surely, and even today, most Sephardic minhagim is that there's a Baal Korah. Baal Korah is the special person who reads. So the blind person could have a Baal Korah read. And he says also, we don't have to check if it's a blind person who's a Talmud Chacham, so therefore knows the Torah or not. But you could read it with the Baal Korah, because the Baal Korah is reading it, you could read it with him. So they basically that you should read it with the Baal Korah even if you're blind. Okay, God forbid. Let's do one more halacha. Let's say you show the person who's getting the aliyah the place that he has to make where they're starting to read from. And then they realize that he showed him the wrong space, where the aliyah starts. There's another place we have to start. Whether they start to read. Is chilu if they haven't started to read yet. Because even if he showed him a wrong place, but the right place was on the same page or in the same eye view, means the Torah was open to the right place. It just he didn't point into the right column, even if it wasn't in the column. If it was in the next column of the column before, but the column was open in front of him, because you make the bracha on what's in front of you, even if you don't know exactly the space. Preferably, you know the space. In Chabad's minhag, of course, we kiss the beginning and end. But if the reading was totally off and it wasn't in front of the person when he made the bracha, as a sefer, you have to roll the sefer to get to the correct place. So, sorry, I have to go back what I said before. It only applies to the column and the column going forward, but the column before doesn't apply even if it's revealed. The halach is you have to make another bracha. Asher bracha banu av baruchu lo yomer shenis. You only make this the bracha, not baruchu as Hashem ha'mevayrach. Only baruch atah Hashem asher bracha banu mikol amim. You don't have to make what we do, kind of the corrective statement when you make a blessing that was wrong. Al bracha you're trying in the first blessing that you did wastefully because you looked at the wrong space. If you said Baruch Atah Hashem, and then the person realized they made a mistake, so just finish off Lamdeni Chukecha, which is a pasuk, and then you could rate the proper blessing in the proper place. So he says, if where he showed him was a little before, that you could just go back and continue and then start again, so then that's what you should do and not make a second blessing, so it shouldn't be a wasteful blessing. Let's see the footnotes 37 and 38, I think, right? 37, 38. Yeah, 37, 38. So he says, blessed is his name whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever. That's what we say. This is said somewhat to somewhat atone for the sin of having mentioned his name, Hashem's name, in vain at the first bracha. So we say, Baruch Shem Tov, this is traditionally what someone says, he or she who makes a bracha levatala. Okay. 38. resulting in him having to set all together. The Hebrew here is a bit off. What are we talking about? Lamdeini chukecha. Blessed are you, Hashem. Teach me your statutes, the mitzvahs, which is a complete verse, thereby avoiding bracha vatala, a breach of reciting in vain, a bracha reciting in vain. Yes, Rebecca.
Just in general, with regard to like if you say a bracha levatala or something like that, when do you say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Va'ed?
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, that's the custom.
But like, so first you finish it with Lamdeini Chukacha, and then you say,
No. Two separate things. If you say Baruch Hashem and you realize that you're about to make a bracha in the wrong space at the wrong time, and you're gonna have to be shown again the space, then you just finish off and then you don't have to say Baruch Hashem because you said a pasuk. If you make a bracha without saying Baruch Hashem Lamdeini Chukacha, so then you have to say Baruch Hashem Kvan B'chus.
okay. What about like, if someone reads a full pasuk from the Chumash, are they allowed to use Hashem's name?
If you're saying Tehillim, you say Tehillim. You said a pasuk. You're saying a pasuk in Torah.
No, like let's say someone's making a Dvar Torah or something, and they're quoting an entire
No.
pasuk.
Yeah. Traditionally not, because then you're just quoting a pasuk as a verse.
Okay, and also, what about in Zmiros?
It's a good question. Zmiros, I want to check on that because
I think some people do and some people don't.
I want to see Chabad doesn't really say Zmiros. The Zmiros that we do say are Mizmor David, which we say, of course, so we say everything. But let me check. I think people do. If I'm not mistaken, my grandfather's saying Zmiros. I think he did. I think we do. But I want to double check. I don't want to
Okay,
say.
thank you.
All right, let's just do one more halacha. Like we said this before, everyone has to get at least 3 verses. When we're reading Mondays and Thursdays and Shabbos afternoon, which is short reading, all in all, it has to be 10. Means not just 9, because 3 times 3 is 9, but it has to be a total of 10, and each person has to have at least 3 psukim, which is why we said in Rosh Chodesh it gets complicated. Best is that the 4th person gets the 4 verses. So he says we should read the minimum of 4 verses for the 3rd Ola. If it happens that in all only 9 verses were read, so then I think there's a printing mistake. Hold on a second. On Mondays, it is required that all that's read, we should read a minimum of 4, and 3rd Ola. Yeah, not sure. This seems like a repetitive statement that's still off in the printing. If we only read 9 psukim, not 10 and 4 to the 3rd person. Yatsu. Ubepurim she'en karim lechulam ela tes psukim zel mishum de salak inyana. And on Purim, those who are more aware, Purim has only a space for 9 psukim. But because the subject is over, we're not going to add a pasuk of another subject. So that's lechatchila what we do. Okay. Or have the Bali Korah read for him as in the present custom. So either the Ola reads, or of course the Baal Korah reads. Is what we do. Just pointing out the obvious. Some allow 3 verses to be read, even I guess lechatchila. 41 on Purim, the holiday commemorating our victory over Haman, the descendant of Amalek. We read the attack of Amalek upon us in the wilderness, which is Exodus 17, 8 through 16. That chapter contains only 9 verses, and therefore we only read the 9 verses. We do not read 10 verses, because then we would have to take a verse from beginning or the end. I think it finishes the parsha in Bishalach, and therefore that doesn't make any sense. All right, everyone. I want to wish everyone a Shavua Tov. Thank you for joining. Thank you for those who contribute stories.